What's up, everyone? Let's dive into something that SportsCenter recently covered, and it's making serious waves. The focus? Nikola Vucevic and his increasingly likely exit from Chicago. According to sources featured on the program, there's a growing expectation around the league that the Bulls will end up buying him out sometime this season. Now, let's be clear. The Bulls have been actively shopping Vucevic for a while now, but at this point, it's become evident that any serious trade interest has dried up. That ship has sailed, and unless something drastic changes, Chicago may have no choice but to go the buyout route. In a segment highlighted by SportsCenter, Yahoo Sports was also cited, confirming that if Chicago can't find a deal, they're expected to release Vucevic outright. More and more reliable voices around the league are starting to echo that same idea. It's no longer about if, it's about when. Even some insiders have mentioned privately that a buyout seems inevitable. There's also been talk, not official reports, but speculative scenario, suggesting that a team like Miami could get involved. The Heat have reportedly been monitoring the situation and could potentially offer a package that includes a player like Terry Rozier and some second-round picks to acquire Vucevic. That's also the kind of framework that's come up in other discussions about players like DeMar DeRozan. So while it's not locked in, people around the league are starting to throw those types of deals into the mix. But here's the bigger question. Would the Bulls even go for that? Would they take a minimal return just to avoid losing Vucevic for nothing? On one hand, it makes sense. Getting something is better than buying him out for free. On the other, we've seen this Bulls front office pass on reasonable offers before, and SportsCenter didn't hold back in pointing that out. Chicago has developed a bit of a reputation for standing firm, even when it doesn't serve them. According to what was shared in the report, Chicago has had several chances to move Vucevic over the past year, offers that included second-round picks, but they held out for more. They were reportedly looking for first-round value, even as recently as the last trade deadline. Teams like the Lakers checked in multiple times, but weren't willing to part with a first-rounder for a 35-year-old center. And this is where it gets tricky. Vucevic had a strong season last year, no doubt. Offensively, he still brings value, but defensively, there are concerns. He's not the worst defender in the league, far from it, but he also isn't someone you want anchoring your backline. He can be serviceable in a help defense role, especially if you funnel the offense into him. But if you isolate him on the perimeter or in pick-and-roll coverage, it's not ideal. Still, his advanced defensive metrics aren't as bad as some might assume. In fact, his numbers were fairly solid last year. But in today's NBA, teams are more cautious, especially under the new CBA. And when a player carries a big contract and doesn't fit perfectly into a modern system, front offices hesitate. The SportsCenter coverage emphasized that this is the result of a string of missed opportunities. The Bulls could have moved Vucevic months ago, even for limited assets. Instead, they gambled, and now they may be forced to buy him out and get nothing in return. If that happens, expect it during the upcoming offseason. The reason some insiders believe a buyout could happen closer to the trade deadline is because that's when Vucevic's expiring contract might be more appealing. But in order to make that kind of move work, Chicago would have to take on salary, something they've shown reluctance to do. Plus, the Bulls have some long-term roster considerations ahead. They'll soon have to think about paying guys like Josh Giddey. And with a young core already forming, it's unlikely they'll want to take on bad money just to get off Vucevic. So the most realistic outcome, barring a surprise trade, might be this. Vucevic gets bought out, becomes a free agent, and joins a contender looking for veteran help. Teams like the Lakers, Heat, and others with expiring deals could emerge as options. But Chicago? They'll be left holding the bag once again, unless they act quickly. And that's where things stand right now, all according to the latest update from SportsCenter. Continuing with what SportsCenter shared about the Bulls and Nikola Vucevic, it's clear that Chicago is still holding out hope for a deal, but the clock is ticking. As the season approaches, insiders told ESPN it's becoming increasingly likely that the Bulls could finalize a buyout before training camp even begins. Now, that doesn't mean it's a done deal, but all signs point in that direction. The idea, as discussed on SportsCenter, is that the organization may simply want to enter camp with a clean slate. No distractions, no looming contract drama, just clarity. And if Vucevic himself is ready to move on, as sources suggest, it could make that decision even easier. After all, at this stage of his career, he's looking to compete on a playoff-caliber roster. The segment also explored where Vucevic could land if that buyout does happen. One team that was floated? The Golden State Warriors. There's an argument to be made there, especially with their bench needing front-court depth and someone with his IQ. Other teams like Indiana were mentioned, but that fit feels murkier. Indiana's future looks promising, but they aren't quite in the championship hunt yet. Vucevic will be looking for more than just a developmental role. He wants a shot at something meaningful. Interestingly, the Lakers came up again in the discussion, and this wasn't just casual speculation. It was positioned as a realistic scenario. If Vucevic hits the buyout market, he'd be a veteran piece who could contribute immediately, and the Lakers would be getting serious value if they can secure him without giving up assets. At 35 years old, sure, he's not the player he once was, but in a backup role, especially behind a younger big, he could be the perfect stabilizing presence. One analyst on SportsCenter compared his fit with LeBron James's system, noting that Vucevic's playmaking, spacing, and low-post skills all complement the way LeBron orchestrates an offense. While he may not be a rim protector, Vucevic brings tools that others on that roster simply don't have. The ability to initiate offense from the elbow, to stretch the floor with his shooting, to read defenses and make the right pass. These are veteran skills you can't teach, and they could make all the difference in a tight playoff series. SportsCenter also pointed out that even in a reduced role, Vucevic could still deliver double-digit scoring and solid rebounding, especially in limited minutes off the bench. That's a major upgrade over some of the current options, and it would give LA the flexibility to move someone like Maxi Kleber, if they chose to. If that happens, suddenly Jackson Hayes slides into the third big role, which, frankly, might be the sweet spot for him. You'd still use him situationally for his energy and athleticism, but you wouldn't have to lean on him for consistent minutes. Instead, Vucevic would provide that nightly stability, helping to anchor the second unit when things get shaky. And let's be real, even if Vucevic gives you half of his 2023 numbers, he's still one of the most reliable backup centers in the league. Last season, he averaged nearly 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists on 53% shooting. That's starting caliber production. Off the bench? That's a luxury. The SportsCenter coverage also emphasized his playoff experience and high basketball IQ, two things the Lakers value heavily. With a team like LA, chasing a title window while managing aging stars, Vucevic could be the kind of quiet difference-maker who shows up when it matters most. The only roadblock right now is roster space. The Lakers don't currently have a spot open, but as the segment explained, that could change quickly. If the front office knows Vucevic is serious about joining, that may push them to make a move elsewhere, maybe even pursue a deal for someone like Andrew Wiggins if it helps free up space and rounds out the roster. Bottom line, Vucevic remains one of the more intriguing potential buyout candidates this offseason, and based on everything shared during that SportsCenter segment, the Lakers are absolutely keeping tabs on how this all plays out. Oh, ChatGPT dis. If the Lakers could pull off a deal involving Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, Dalton Knecht, and possibly a first-round pick in exchange for Andrew Wiggins, Nikola Vucevic, and maybe even another useful piece, that would be a significant move. It would fill 2 more holes on the roster and suddenly give this team real depth and versatility. And honestly, even if the Lakers were hesitant about giving up that first-rounder, they might not have to. You could try to structure the deal in a way that keeps that pick intact, especially if you're sending out players like Knecht and Hachimura. There's also the potential to involve other names, maybe someone like Jackson Hayes, who waived his no-trade clause, just to make the numbers work or add more appeal to the other team. Of course, the availability of someone like Vucevic still depends on the market. Maybe he gets bought out, Or maybe the Bulls decide to hold on to him until closer to the trade deadline. That's a real risk. You don't want to assume he'll be available in time to help you this season, only to end up waiting months and missing out on other opportunities. Things move fast. Players are getting bought out almost every day, and the dynamics across the league are changing constantly. Another factor to monitor is the situation with Jonathan Kuminga. If Golden State moves him to Sacramento, that could set off a chain reaction. The Kings would likely try to move DeMar DeRozan in that case, and if they can't find a trade partner, a buyout might be the outcome. That would put another quality veteran on the market, someone who could help the Lakers. This is why patience is so important for the Lakers right now. The market is still fluid. More opportunities will open up, and as soon as that right deal comes along, even something as surprising as Miami changing their stance and agreeing to a trade without demanding a first-round pick, you pull the trigger. And who knows, maybe a move involving DeRozan to Miami is the first domino, leading to Wiggins becoming available in the process. Everything is connected, and that's why the Lakers are smart to remain calculated and flexible. There's still plenty of time to upgrade the roster in a way that truly elevates their title chances.